Welcome. In this video, I'll be talking about Amazon's Cloudwatch, which is a monitoring service for AWS cloud resources. Cloudwatch allows you to monitor your AWS resources using Cloudwatch metrics, and it also allows you to set something called alarms for various AWS resources on certain conditions that you can set. Another feature of Cloudwatch is that you can create your own custom metrics and publish them to Cloudwatch and use them as the basis for monitoring or setting other alarms. So let's begin this video by looking at some of the basic services that are provided by CloudWatch. So I have an instance which I have kept in the stop state. I'll just start it up. And you'll notice that one of the primary uses of CloudWatch is to keep tabs on your running EC2 instances. So if you go into the web console and simply click on the monitoring tab, you should be able to see some of the CloudWatch metrics available for your EC2 instances. Now, it's important to note that there are two types of monitoring that's available for EC2 instances. There's the basic monitoring, which comes for free with every instance that you provision on EC2. And then there's the idea of detailed monitoring, as you can see here. Detailed monitoring is a system by which CloudWatch will start collecting metrics at 1 minute intervals, as opposed to the 5-minute intervals that are available with basic monitoring. So if you want more detailed information about your instance at 1 minute intervals, then you can enable detailed monitoring. It's important to note that detailed monitoring costs a little extra, and you are charged for each instance that you enable detailed monitoring for. So that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're using detailed monitoring. So some of the graphs that are available in CloudWatch include CPU utilization, disk reads, disk read operations, disk writes, networks in and out, as well as any status checks. Also, for certain types of instances such as T2 micro, you get bursty CPU power on the basis of a credit system, which is basically something similar to what Zen does. So you can get that information from CloudWatch as well about your credit usage and how much balance do you have. Okay, so that's basically some of the main CloudWatch metrics that are available on the web console. It's important to note that you can access any of the CloudWatch metrics using the AWS SDKs. So if you want, you can programmatically ping and find out what the CPU utilization is, or what's your network in or out for any of your instances using the AWS SDKs. And it's also another important thing to note about CloudWatch is that CloudWatch is available for other AWS resources as well. So not just EC2. You can use CloudWatch to monitor resources such as S3 or Elastic MapReduce and so on. Okay, it's also important to note that CloudWatch allows you to push your own metrics from pretty much any source. It doesn't even have to be an EC2 instance, but you can actually publish your own metrics, stuff that you calculate on your own, or things that you can retrieve from say a MySQL server or any application program. For example, I have a quick example that I borrowed from the AWS documentation. So the name of the API call that you'll be using is called put metric data, and this is kind of available on all of the SDKs. The example that I'm going to show you right now is just for the AWS CLI tool. So the command basically is AWS Cloudwatch followed by the call that we're making, which is put metric data, followed by a name for the metrics. So you give, for example, page view count. So if you're running like a custom web server and you're able to, run a command that gets you the page views, you can actually publish that data into CloudWatch. So you're giving a metric name followed by a namespace, for just keeping track of all of the metrics. So if you have a particular name of a service or a website or a web server, you can just put that over here, followed by the value, the actual value that you want to push, and the timestamp, in a fully qualified Unix timestamp, which is year, month, day, followed by T for time, followed by the entire time, and Z for the time zone. So if you follow this format, you should be able to push the value 2 for my service.pageview_count into CloudWatch as a custom metric. Okay, so now let's go into a little more detail about some of the things that you can actually do with CloudWatch. So if you go into the CloudWatch dashboard inside your AWS service dashboard, there is the idea of CloudWatch alarms. So if you click on alarms, you can actually create an alarm based on some kind of metric that is available. So you can select, either a billing alarm, and I would advise all of you to actually set up a billing alarm in case you want to keep track of your AWS usage. So in this account, I'm basically using EBS and EC2, so those are the only ones that show up. But as you use more services, more metrics will show up in CloudWatch. So you can select an EC2 metric, and for example, you can select, an active instance that's running. And what you can do is you can select a metric and then specify an alarm threshold. So first of all, you can give a name and description for the alarm for your own reference. But the other thing that you can do is you can specify an evaluation period. So you're going to look at CPU utilization on average for 5 minutes, and then you specify a logic for the alarm. That is, if the CPU utilization is greater than or equal to a particular, value. So for reference, they'll give you a graph right here. I guess the highest CPU utilization is 1, lowest is 0. So if, for example, you can put an alarm that says, hey, my CPU utilization exceeded, say, 85% or 90% for one consecutive period of 5 minutes or something like that. In which case, once this alarm is set, you can either specify a notification, so you can have it send you an email or a text message, or if you've got some kind of endpoint, application endpoint, you can set that up in simple notification service. You could do that. More advanced features include auto scaling, so you can actually specify an auto scaling action that says, hey, CPU utilization crossed 90% consecutively for 5 periods. It looks like we are having a lot of traffic, so let's add another instance to this auto scaling group. Auto scaling will be discussed in detail in future videos. Also, you can take another EC2 action depending on what you want to do. So if you want to stop or terminate an instance, for example, you could use this, for example, if your CPU utilization is below a certain percentage, if you're not using auto scaling group. In an auto scaling group, you can actually scale up or scale down based on whatever conditions you want. And then when you click on create alarm, it's going to create an alarm for you, and it will notify you in case the alarm state is reached, or it'll take whatever action that you specified to when the alarm goes off, when the state is alarm per se. It's important to note that all of these features are also available not just through the web service, but also from the SDKs themselves. So you could actually, based on some program logic, set up alarms in code if you wanted to. So if you were writing your own auto scaling system, or if you were managing EC2 instances entirely from a Python program, you could create an instance, and immediately, as soon as the instance comes up and you get an instance ID, you can set up an alarm threshold for that particular instance, or any other AWS resources. For more information on this, you should definitely refer to the API and tool documentation about some of the other API calls that you can make into CloudWatch to get more information about your AWS resources.